Hi YouTube, I'm Jessica from the 104 Homestead. I figured I'd use today, which is gorgeous, to show you my gardens. Have to admit they're not perfect, but you know what? Gardening is not meant to be perfect. The idea is to feed your family and have fun, and although I'm a little bit behind in the weeds, I'm certainly having fun this year, and if all goes well, I'll definitely feed my family. We're going to start right here with the broccoli and mystery plants. I planted earlier this season thinking I was planting broccoli, and then I found the flat of broccoli. So somewhere in here there's a plant that looks just like broccoli, but can't be. So we're going to wait and find out what it is. I'm thinking maybe it's Brussels sprouts, but I mean, if you look, these guys are all very much alike. Some bugs are getting into this one. Over here I also have some sweet onions. You'll notice beside me we've got my gardening gloves on the ground, but also this big hut. It does definitely cast a shadow on these back beds, but you know what? These guys can actually benefit from a little bit of shade. Especially with the broccoli, it prevents bolting, so hopefully they can get a little bit bigger before they go. Alright, this next bed I have here was a challenge this year. The only things that did really well are over here. They are my sweet peppers. We got a few flowers coming in there. These guys I had no problem with. One thing I want to mention, I had to play a lot with shadows this year. You know, I did my sun mapping. You can find more on the 104 Homestead about that. These guys get morning sun. The sun manages on making it over the hut. So they're getting the sun that peppers really need. While the rest of the stuff tends to get shadowed in the morning. You can actually see it right now. This cabbage is getting a little sun, but a lot of it's kind of in the shade. These guys don't need the sun quite as much. They're on the list of somewhat shade tolerant. In addition to the sweet peppers that I have in here, I have some cabbage. These guys kind of gave me a hard time this year. I usually would plant about twice as many. I think I've got 3 that made it. I just was having, or no, I've got 4. I was thinking that they were really hard to germinate and get going. So not as many as I would have liked. I filled them with some zinnias though, which are always a nice addition. These guys are going to open up soon. I love having flowers in the vegetable garden. When the plants maybe aren't at their best, the flowers are a really great way to add some color and add some flair. I'm hoping you guys can hear me over the chicken that's doing her egg song in the background. Another great post on the 104 Homestead. This is the time of day that they're all going, so I hope you can hear me okay. In the back here, I've got some really pretty rainbow Swiss chard. I will be perfectly honest, I can't stand eating Swiss chard, but I put it in the garden every year. The reason for that is they make really great fall coloring. They're a nice addition, and I can freeze them and give them to my chickens through the winter as a green source. Over here, I'm not sure if you guys can identify this. These are green beans. Again, we got some flowers going on. Maybe they're at their end, about to start producing beans. These guys were the bane of my existence this year. I planted 2 different kinds. I'll show you the second kind later, who is way ahead of these ones. These ones are the Blue Lakes. I chose Blue Lakes because they freeze so much better than the contenders tend to. But this year they just wouldn't germinate for me. They do tend to get going a little bit later in the season than the contenders do, but these guys, they wouldn't germinate, and then the chickens would come and eat them, and then bugs would eat them, and I probably replanted 4 or 5 times. I think I finally got frustrated. There may be some contenders mixed in here just because I needed to fill this bed and was getting a little bit annoyed, but whatever is in here, whether it's contender or Blue Lake, will be frozen this year, and the other ones will be used for canning. Alright, this is another beans bed that I have going. This one has dried beans as well as green beans. The green beans are the ones way in the back here. These are the contenders I was telling you about. You can tell the difference. They have beautiful purple flowers versus the white of the Blue Lakes. And if we peek under these leaves, yep, we have little tiny green beans growing. So hopefully these guys will do really well. These ones are going to be the ones that I use for canning. I think it is the outer shell of them. They tend to be firmer, so they hold up to canning without getting really soggy. Next to them here and way behind things are the dry beans. These are navy beans. I'll use them to make baked beans this year. There aren't as many as I would have liked. I honestly can't even give you a count at this point how many are in here. But you know, you don't need that many for for baked beans, and my family doesn't eat a whole bunch of them, so it should be alright on these ones. And then at the end here, these guys weren't planned, but you know, I figured I had them, I'd stick them in. I have a wonderful friend who sent me some Cherokee Trail of Tears beans. Because my dry beans hadn't done as well as I'd hoped, I had some dead space, so I'd stick them in. I've got this trellis here. Actually, it's left over from my wedding for them to climb up. So I figured, you know, hey, the more beans the merrier. We'll just stick them right in here. Alright, here is what I call Potato Central, and this is an example of showing you things when maybe they are not as perfect as I would hope. Over here, I have, let's get in here, I have some sweet potatoes. I have not done sweet potatoes before. My mom had some extra slips. She gave them to me. I needed to get them into something, so they went in these pots. You'll notice that the 5-gallon pot, this actually used to be used as a chicken feeder, so we already had holes in it. I drilled a few more at the bottom just to get really good drainage. They're not trailing. I thought that they were vining. I still think they're vining, but they're just not. But in case they do, I wanted to get my tomato cage for them to climb on ahead of time, because as anybody knows, trying to cage something after it's already ready to be caged is a real hassle. So I try to get these in first thing before they really get going. Next to them, I'm trying an experiment with potatoes, doing it in containers and bags and things like that. These are tires off of my old car that I no longer have. You can see these guys really need some mulching put in. I just keep throwing in leaf litter and, you know, whatever I've got, mixed in with some dirt. They're looking a little lackluster, and it's been really hot, so they're not happy. Tires, the one thing I would caution you on is cleaning properly. If you go into the 104 Homestead where this video is posted, I'll make sure to put a link at the bottom. I'll give you steps on washing tires so that they're safe. There's still some people that say absolutely don't do it, but you know, I'm going to live on the edge here. My other thing that I've got going here are the potatoes in bags. These are just simple, let me see if I can get in there so you can see them. Simple canvas bags. Again, I just keep layering up with whatever I've got just to encourage it to grow more and more potatoes. Where they trail, I will tie them onto the little trellis, just because although they're fine flopped on the ground, I just aesthetically don't like it. I am a huge fan of recycled bags, but these particular ones, they're floppy. I didn't love them, so I'm giving them new purpose in the garden this year. I actually think I got them at a home and garden show, so that just seems fitting. Alright, back here I have some butternut squash. You can see I put some leftover trellis fencing that I had behind them. I'm not sure if I can get them to trail away from the sun, but I figured, you know, it's worth a try. One big thing about gardening is always experimenting, always trying. Again, they're looking a little limp just because it's really hot right now. At least by Maine standards, we don't get really warm temperatures. But, you know, they're doing pretty good. I've got one at the ends looking a little bit sad over there, but, you know, might perk up. There's still plenty of time. I had forgotten to plant head lettuce, and I'll show you my big bed of lettuce later. But so I stuck in some seeds in here for some head lettuce. I don't know. It's pretty crispy. I don't know if they're going to make it. But again, it doesn't hurt to try. You know, a packet of seeds is maybe a couple bucks if you're getting organic, a little old for $1 if you're getting standard. And, you know, try things, experiment, and see what works, because you never know what'll happen. Alright, now we've reached tomatoes and carrots. I'm going to try to pan back, see if you guys can see all this. You know, I need to get a photographer or a videographer or whatever they call them for this type of stuff. I've got a couple different tomato projects going on in here. I have actually, it's divided in 4 sets because I'm very organized. You'll notice along this back row, there are no cages. These ones are being tied up against this field fence back here. Half of the ones on the field fence I am clipping suckers. The other half I am not. I'm just firmly attaching the suckers to the field fence. I want to see which ones perform better. You may have read I wrote about what to do about tomato suckers on the 104 Homestead. Might want to check that out. But you know, there's so many schools of thought, and I wanted to see what went better. Now next to them, I've got cage tomatoes. These ones in the front are cherry tomatoes. Almost everything else in here is Roma, because that's my good base tomato for sauces and salsas and canning and things like that. Again, with the caged tomatoes, I'm doing the exact same thing. I took half the cherries and half the Romas down there, and I am removing the suckers and lower branches on some, not on others, and I just want to see how things perform. In front of them, I have my carrots. I am so proud. I am the worst at growing carrots, but this year, I'm not sure what it was, but I did something right because these guys are beautiful. If you look underneath, well, maybe not right here, a lot of times there's still some grass growing in between. Oh, see, here's one. I actually only weed the really big grass, and the reason for that is, though it's a little bit safer now, is carrots hate when you mess with them. I mean, they die. It's horrible. So a lot of times, unless the grass is like right up against the carrot or it's really huge, I just choose to leave it be, because a lot of times I end up accidentally disturbing the carrot and it dies. So I've learned that I get a better bounty when I just leave things alone. I'm not sure if you can see this because it's black, but I have bird netting in front of almost everything. The reason being, if we look right over here, that is the chicken yard. See, chickens at play. They're pretty good. The fence for them is really a recommendation, and I have some that recommend being outside of it most of the day. They won't mess with the tomatoes and the potatoes because of the fact that they're toxic. They just know to leave them alone. But things like carrots, they really seem to enjoy. So I put up this fencing. It's floppy in some areas. It just needs to kind of say, this isn't worth my effort, and they'll leave it alone. I put in some basil all through here. Basil does really great with tomatoes and pretty good with carrots too. They were starting to get a little leggy, so I just chopped some off. I try to go to the first big clump and cut down to that point, so they'll bush out some more. And you know, honestly, if the chickens nibble these leaves that are hanging over, that's actually really great because it encourages them to throw up new branches and grow even thicker and fuller. So that's actually not such a bad deal. So they do help me some. Alright, this is what I call the salad bed. I have 5 different salad greens. There were supposed to be 6, but again, I forgot the head lettuce in there, or I didn't do anything. I'm not sure which. I have some really pretty lettuces in here, though they are definitely showing the heat today. I have these wonderful Reubens. I love these with the coloring, and the bigger that they get, the darker red they get, which is really, really nice. I like lettuce with personality. You know, plain old lettuce is just plain old lettuce. I like when it has a little something to it. So next to them, I also have speckled lettuce. I had never grown speckled lettuce before. You can see, especially if you get right in there, there's the spots. Though I'm shadowing, so I don't know. I never planted it before, but I got some from Bear Creek Seeds. I won a contest, and I figured, what the heck, we'll give it a try. The flavor is very similar to iceberg, but it's a pretty lettuce, and you know, why shouldn't salads be fancy? This is just your run-of-the-mill giant Caesar, because, you know, staple. But those guys are doing pretty good. They could probably use to be thinned out a little bit more. Some of my spacing's tight, but what I do is I tend to seed a lot of it, and then I'll thin it throughout the phases, and a lot of the times you don't need to wait for lettuces to get big. You can eat them while you're thinning them. So I'll just thin them, stick them in a basket, bring them inside, wash them, and we're having salad for dinner that night. These guys I love. This is Mizuna, and you will notice that now I've let it go to seed, or flower, so it will go to seed. These guys are biennials, which means that next year I'm going to have to plant them again, but then the year after they'll come back. So 2 years of seeding this stuff, and it will keep coming back. It's an oriental green. There's kind of a kick to this one. This one is the red Mizuna. Most of it's kind of lost its reddish. If you look in here, you can kind of see the red tint on the edge of the leaves. At first they were really dark, but as they flower, they tend to kind of turn just regular green. This is the oriental. The flavor is not quite as strong. You'll see it's got broader leaves. But you know, it looks even really pretty just as the flowers. So, you know, again, flowers in the garden. Why not make it look nice, right? Alright, this is a bed in progress. You can see that I use newspapers to kind of line to keep the grass out. I was doing wood chips. I ran out of sorts, so I've got grass now. I need to get in here with the weed whacker and take care of it, but I keep hoping that maybe someone will show up with more wood chips. I just lay down a thick layer of cardboard and then put the wood chips over, and it works really great. But I even with that, I always put down, I mean, a lot of newspapers. There's a lot of layers in there. And then cover with compost and dirt. This one is so much more shallow than I wish it was, but it was a time crunch. I had these cucumbers that needed to go in, and so they're kind of, I mean, they're doing okay considering the fact that I didn't get it right. In the back, I've got some hot peppers. I've got on the left there is the jalapeno, on the right is a habanero. Nope, it's the other way around. I am trying something new because I actually seeded a whole bunch of both and neither one did well, and so I ended up with one of each. So I'm going to try some pickled hot peppers using a combination of the two. My husband will eat just about anything, and he's the one that has a love for hot peppers, so I'm hoping that works out. Once I get some more soil thrown in, this other side is going to be for parsnips. Those guys, you know, there's really no rush, especially here in Maine. They can be put in late fall, and they'll still be ready for next summer. In fact, I think I'm going to be probably doing that in the next week or so. This last bed in the main garden is a disaster. It was supposed to be for melons. I planted, they'd die. I'd plant, they wouldn't germinate. I finally gave up. I was going to put some walking onions in here and some garlic, but both those can be put in later in the season. And my mom had some more tomatoes that she had unload, and you can see my lack of care with the bounty of weeds that are growing in here, but I figured, you know, throw them in and we'll call it good and see if, you know, something happens. You'll notice on these gauges, I have these wonderful snazzy beads. The reason for those was I tried a couple years ago. I had a lot of crows coming and eating my tomatoes, and someone had said that flashy, shiny things will kind of keep them away. So I went through my bead stock. We got a whole bunch of different colorful ones in here. And I figured maybe the flashiness would keep them at bay. I hate to report it didn't work, but I never got around to taking the beads off, so they're still there. You know, it adds flair, I guess. It goes nicely with my steel frog and cat that I made when I was in high school. So, again, this is one of those, I don't really care too much about the bed. I probably will weed it at some point, but it's not high on my priority list. You'll notice the wood on this one, this bed, and a couple of the other ones. The reason for that was some of my mounds stayed intact and some started to fall apart. So I had these logs sticking around. They're wood that didn't burn well in our stove, so I ended up just sticking them out here, and they're holding the beds together. And you know what? They soak up a lot of moisture when it rains, especially these really nice dry ones. And then it releases it into the soil as needed. So it came out as a good thing, but not exactly the way I intended. Got to roll with the punches when you're gardening. This bed right here is kind of an assortment of things, and probably the most bountiful of all of them. I've got in the front here some fancy gourds. They seem to me like they are maybe a little bit overwhelming for the area, but spacing wise, according to the package, we're doing good, but we will definitely have an abundance of fancy gourds in here. Beside it, we have some pickling cucumbers. The other ones I showed you were gardening cucumbers. Well, that's what I call them. They're slicing. These ones pickle really good, and so we'll have lots of good pickles. In the back here, we've got an abundance of kale. A lot of this needs to come out right now because it's too closely spaced. It won't do well. But just like with the lettuces, you know, I overdo it, and then I can always come thin it when it's, you know, at a good size to eat. And that way nothing is being wasted. And if for some reason things don't germinate, the area is still going to be full. Along the outsides, you will see I've got sweet peas trained. They are taller than the trellis in a lot of areas, but you know, they'll come back down or they'll stand up on their own, and it's really not a big deal. And in fact, I am seeing the first start of our sweet peas for the season, so I'm really excited about those. These are probably by far my favorite things in the garden. That completes our tour of the big garden. The garden that I just showed you is new this year. That's why everything's behind, even by Maine standards. It took a lot to get this baby together, but I'm so excited about it. The next garden I'm going to show you is our 10-foot by 10-foot garden. That is the garden that up until this year I used for all of our gardening purposes. It took some serious intensive planting to get as much as I did, and it would only carry us for a couple months through the winter with food. So I'm hoping that having the bigger garden is going to help. Because I had the open space, and I put a few things in there. I thought I would try my hand at corn for the first time, and I gotta tell you, when that corn came up, I felt like I switched from a hobbyist to a real farmer. So I'll show you that garden and see what I've got going in there. Alright, this last garden is right up next to the road, so I'm hoping to be able to do this in one shoot without some big loud trucks or motorcycles going by. This is my rebel garden. We are not supposed to plant within 50 feet of the road where I live, but you know, I stuck it in there and put flowers in. Nobody asked any questions, and then I put up fencing, still no questions, and then I switched to produce and nobody's really said anything. So hoping to fly under the radar here. This is where I have my corn, what makes me an official farmer, and I'm trying kind of a modified Three Sisters. It's not exactly the way they typically do it, but I've got, you know, the corn, I've got some pumpkins in here. On the far side I have some zucchinis. I don't know if you there's some zucchinis. Something is stealing the flowers, so I'm not sure if anything's going to really happen with those, but I'm optimistic. You'll notice I've got lots of hay in here. The reason is, and I will show you once I dig down through all of it, I have, oh, that's not a thick area, I have the worst soil ever around this bed. This one is the worst. It is almost completely sand. This is one of the highlights of living where I live is, you know, we're right on the beach pretty much, and it's just, it's horrible soil. So the hay helps with the moisture, getting the moisture in there, but it also will hopefully become organic matter that will help. The potatoes here were not exactly intentional. That's why they're going across my little path there. I have to scale across them. When you're harvesting potatoes in the ground, one of the risks is that you don't get them all, and then you have these wonderful volunteers next year. But you know, the silver lining is if the containers don't work out, at least I have a plan B going. These potatoes I know will perform great. Ordinarily I would hill them, but where they are I can't really do that. I've got some corn growing up amongst them and some other stuff, so we're just going to hope for the best on this. Along the back of the fence, I've got some sunflowers. These actually are dual purpose, and I have them in another spot. Not only are they really, really pretty, especially in the fall when things are maybe dying back, but they're also a great protein source for my chickens. When the hens get really big, I stick pantyhose over them. People look at me weird, but the birds don't eat the seeds. And then I can dry them and store the seeds for the winter for the birds. So they definitely serve a purpose beyond just beauty, and I am all for that. So yeah, we got the corn and the pumpkins. I also, in this far corner here, have an apple tree that was given to me. I was told it was a crab apple. Oops, see, there's a motorcycle. I was told it was a crab apple, and you know, I've waited for 5 years for this thing to start bearing apples, and I will get a nice close-up for you, scaling the giant potatoes. You'll notice how tiny, oh, maybe you can't see them. These are some really teeny tiny apples, and they just weren't getting any bigger. I did my homework, and you know what? I have an ornamental apple tree, and as much as I love ornamental, if it doesn't serve a purpose, I don't feel the need to keep it. So it will probably stay on the property, but it won't be taking up valuable space in my garden, so that's going to get moved. I also have in this back corner as an afterthought, again, those wonderful Cherokee Trail of Tears beans that a friend gave me. Well, I stuck some in the ground, and they're doing really great. My only concern is that, and compared to the corn over here, I may have to end up trellising them. I'm not sure that they'll reach the fence on the far side. I was hoping they would trail up the corn. I think I put too much space in between them. I don't know if you can see. There's quite a good chunk of space there. I mean, over a foot. So I might have to come up with a game plan for those, because these ones are vining and they'll need something to hang on to. But again, if you've got it and somebody's saying, hey, do you want this for free, take it, because you can find a spot to put things. And you know, it's more food for your family, so grab it. Alright, this last bed I'm going to show you is the last pure edibles bed. This is definitely not perfection at its finest, because if you look here, you know, everything is beautifully groomed and maintained, a little dry, but again, there's heat. And then you go around the corner to the back where nobody can see, and I'm a wee bit behind on my weeding. So I'm going to definitely be taking care of that over the next couple days. This bed combines edible herbs, you know, for culinary purposes. It also has some wonderful medicinal herbs, tea herbs. I've got chamomile that, although started off kind of floppy, is looking beautiful now, big and bushy with flowers. I've already stolen some from it. I use it in the chicken coop. It helps repel bugs. I also will use it, there's my son, I will also use it in nest box treatments and stuff. I sprinkle a bunch of dried herbs in, and it helps calm the birds and again keep those bugs away. I don't have the list right now of everything that's in here other than the easily identifiable chives there and some parsley over here that I'm letting go to seed. But at the bottom of the post that this video is posted in, I will make sure to have a list of everything that is growing in these gardens so you can see them all. One thing I forgot to mention about this herbal spiral is it is not your typical herbal spiral. I'm not about to ask people to go out and do this because I'm not sure it's going to work, but it's an experiment here using hugelkultur, which you can learn about on the 104 Homestead. I dug a hole 2.5 to 3 feet down into the ground and put a whole bunch of rotted wood that I had lying around in there, as well as some sticks and twigs and leaf mold and all sorts of good things, and then I filled it with soil and built the spiral. Now, right now it is working beautifully. There's great moisture, as you can tell from the weeds. Everything's looking really great. Healthy plants and stuff. My dill looks fabulous there. I don't know if you can pick up the yellow flowering going on. My concern with this technique is what will happen as the wood decomposes. In typical herbal beds, they're built 5 or 6 feet high, and after a few seasons, they're just small mounds in the ground. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect a loose built bed, because you'll notice that there's no concrete in here. This is just stacked slate that I had. It's a highlight of living in Maine. We have it everywhere. So I'm not sure what it will do to the integrity of the spiral, you know, having that wood base, but if it works out well, I'm definitely going to be doing a post on that, so I hope you check back and see how it goes. Well, that wraps up Gardening Tour 2014. If you ever have any gardening questions, feel free to ask me. You can get in touch with me on Facebook, Twitter, or contact me through the website. I'm happy to answer any questions, and if I don't know the answer, I can find the people that do. Have a great day.